Um, okay, so my entrepreneurial journey started really back in 1976 when my older brother came back from America and said that he had found a business there called Kmart. It was a huge, big retail department store chain of stores. It was the largest chain of department discount stores in America. And he said we should try and open up one of those in South Africa and aim it at the lower income market. And I had just dropped out of university at the time. I did finish university. And I was working in the music industry for Gallows Records.
Oh,
And then he came and said, let's do this. So we decided to go ahead and we used their name, which wasn't so clever, and then we used their logo as well, which was even less clever. Anyway, we launched, we were supposed to launch in June 1976, believe it or not.
oh, 76.
Yeah, June 76, and that was obviously
During the rise.
famous time, yeah. So it was round about the time of the uprising, so we had to postpone our opening, and we opened instead at the beginning of July. Anyway, it was a whole long story, but the real challenge for me is I came from a very privileged white environment. My father was quite a successful businessman. He was one of the founders of Russell Furnishers.
Oh, hell.
I remember when I sent eight older brothers are all in business. I was the youngest. And so I had no exposure to black people of any kind other than domestic workers, housekeepers and stuff. And so what happened was that we chose to go in at the lower income level that was mainly aimed at black customers. And so we opened a store where the customers were all black, 100% black, and the staff were 100% black. And I had to now try and understand how to manage this situation. And I was really failing quite dismally. I was too young. I was 22 years old. And I was too young. I was too naive. I was too white. A bit stupid, actually. So I had no idea how to get the communication going between me and my staff. And so I had to look for a mentor. One of the people that I found was a guy called Ralph Mamela. He was one of our best employees, and I had promoted him to be a supervisor on the shop floor.
What was his name?
Ralph Mamela.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so one day, interesting time, and I don't know how much time we've got here, but it's
No, you can tell me.
two interesting stories.
You can definitely tell.
Decide if you want to put them in or not.
Definitely.
So it was at the time when there were these consumer boycotts in the late 70s. And so there were boycotts of white-owned stores as part of the struggle in those days. And, they used to hand out pamphlets, trying to stop customers from shopping at white-owned businesses. Sold down to the arcade stores. Of course, we were a white-owned business. So one day, one of my staff comes to me and says, listen, one of our own people is out there in the streets handing out pamphlets. One of our own staff is handing pamphlets out in the street to the consumers, telling them not to shop at Sorbet. Street. Came on.
There was a white person doing that.
No, it was Ralph Mamela.
Oh, Ralph Mamela,
It
yeah.
turned out to be him.
Oh,
So he was the guy that I thought was my big star, and he was busy promoting boycotts of our own store. So it wasn't very nice. I was very upset. Anyway, I called him in and I shouted at him, told him that it was no good. And in those days, you could just fire people. It wasn't so difficult. He was expecting to be fired, and I actually wanted to fire him. But after I shouted at him, I said, what have you got to say? I mean, how can you betray me like this? And he said, I'll tell you. He said, firstly, I want to thank you for the job and giving me this role. And I enjoy working here. But the problem is that every day, virtually every day, well, whether it's in the morning coming into work or in the afternoon going home, I am harassed by the police for some or other ridiculous apartheid law. And they're stopping me, and sometimes they want to arrest me if I haven't got my documents, my passport, and all this stuff. And he said, I can't live like this. It's not the right way to live. And it makes it very difficult for me to focus on my work when I'm having to deal with these things outside of the workplace. And he said to me something that really opened my mind and my eyes. And he said to me, for me, it's freedom first and work second. And I thought, wow, that was a real eye-opener. I said, okay. So I didn't fire him. And I said to him, instead of firing him, I said, listen, I want you to be my teacher, my mentor. I want you to teach me everything there is to know about what's going on in this country.
Why? Like, anybody would have just fired him. Like,
Yeah,
what did he want to
I
know?
was fascinated by this. And it really interested me. And I said, you've got to teach me so that I can understand what's going on. Because you can't ignore the socio-political environment in which your people are working, and then still try and understand why they think and behave the way they do. So he said, okay, no problem. And that started a relationship. And he took me to Soweto on a number of occasions. He took me to his home, his family, took me to Sorbet. He showed me around the place, which was a real privilege for me because there were very, very few. I didn't know any white people that had been into Sorbet, certainly in my circle. And so that was an amazing eye-opener and set me on a journey completely different to what I had ever hoped. And started to get me really interested in race relations, racism, and discrimination, and trying to get to the bottom of the whole apartheid system and how it worked and what it impact it was having on people, etc., etc. And of course, from that day, I started changing the way that I was managing people completely, tried and sat down with them one-on-one individually to explain to me what their lives were like. Living in the townships. I wanted to know what time did they get up in the morning? How did they get? What are the taxes? What are the issues? Whatever it was, how were they doing? How were they coping financially? How many people were living in their house, etc., etc. And then I got to know each and every one of the staff like that over a period of time. And that was how I started to get involved in this whole topic of racism and racial healing. And then that, it went on from there, many stories that I won't have time to go through with. But about 4 years after we opened, 3 years after we opened, and by the way, we were doing very well in music. We had a record bar there. We were the first people to discount music in the black market, yeah.
What kind of music was it?
And all the music that black people were buying and listening to, a lot of it was jazz, and of course all the indigenous music. And then there was people like the Soul Brothers, and then of course one of the artists there, which was a big seller at the time, in 1979, was a woman by the name of Letta Mbuli.
Oh yes, that's Mbuli.
Letta. She was a big star, and she had an album out there called "There's Music in the Air."
Oh yes.
And one other little detail I need to give you is that we were the first company in 1977 to appoint black shareholders and directors of the business.
This is Kmart.
Okay. As far as I know, I'd never heard of any other at that early stage. And so one of my partners then at the time, his name was Carl Molokome, he said to me one day, he said, listen, this woman, Letta Mbuli, that's doing so well, he got shocked. He said, her and her husband, Kafa Symphony, are coming out to Harare, Zimbabwe. They live in America, but they can't come to South Africa. They're not allowed to come. So they come to Harare, and then their family go up there and visit them. until they could see them. So he said, would you like to go and meet these people? I said, absolutely. Then flew to a party, and within an hour or two, I had struck up a really good friendship with Cactus. And he said to me, listen, I've got some material, unfinished recordings, and Letta Mbuli is no longer signed to a record company in America, called A&M Records, and she's now free for distribution in South Africa. Would you like to distribute this music of ours? Yes, absolutely, please.
Yes.
So I said, yeah, I told my brother, listen, I'm leaving Kmart. You carry on. And I'll get into the music business.
With black people.
With black people. I started a record company together with Kaipless. And it was called originally Moonshine Records, and then his label was called Mujari Productions.
Mm.
And then we started to release their music. So the first album released was Sound of a Rainbow by Letta, which had a huge hit called Everybody's Singing. And then Kaipless put out his own album with big hits, like Angelina,
My parents and
Zippo Corn
oh wow,
and all of that stuff.
that is legendary.
Legend.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So we released all that music. It's this that you started. And it was hugely successful. And that we put out more music on theirs. And another big hit called Matswane.
I know, I'm just quiet because I love the music. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so that was a wonderful time. And then our Hugh Masekela came, and he signed with us. And then the Soul Brothers signed with us.
Wow.
So we had some really big names. All of a sudden, we were building a big company. And then we attracted some investment from overseas, and a guy called Clive Calder. We had a South African big company in London, and he had some major artists like Britney Spears. Anyway, so one day he phones me up, this guy, interesting. Phones me up, he said, listen, it's becoming too expensive for us to record Masekela in America. What I want to do is I want to buy a recording studio that's fitted into a truck, right? A mobile recording studio. You're going to ship it from America to South Africa, and you're going to drive it up to Gaborone in Botswana. You're going to set up that studio there, and the Masekela is going to come and record there. So that's exactly what we did. Put up a studio in Gaborone outside in a little place called the Woodpecker Inn, and we set up it. Masekela came out with his producer, a guy called Stuart Levine, and then we got some local backing musicians, Jonas Coinroy, Morino, and the Soul Brothers, all performed with him. The album was called Techno Bush. Anyway, so the interesting story there was that after the recording sessions every day, we would go to this guy's house in the city, in the town of Kobe. His name was George Pashne. George and his wife, Lindy. And so we would just go there after the sessions, and we'd drink, listen to music, have fun. I noticed a lot of people always there, coming and going, moving in and out. Didn't really think about it too much. And we never really discussed politics. It was mainly just chatting and enjoying the music. I only found out later that house was an ANC safe house, right, where the MK soldiers were coming in and out all the time. I didn't know. I was just there.
That's so interesting.
And then tragedy struck. June 1984, 85. The South African Defence Force crossed over into Botswana and raided Gaborone and killed all the people in that house.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, killed them all. George and Lindy both died, and there were 3 or 4 others that were killed. That in the pet plan. It was about 2 weeks after we had left and gone back to South Africa. So it was a hell of a shock to all of us. We had become very friendly with this couple. And so, it just shook me up completely. And we closed our studio, took it back to Johannesburg. Hugh went back to America. And that's how it was really a disaster. And effectively, at that point in time, I then sold this company that I had, music business.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. Continued my relationship with Caiaphas and Letta for a long time. And when they came out here in 1991, after the opening up and banning of the ANC, they came back. And we even put on a show together at the F&B Stadium with the boycotts and Community 91. Anyway, so that was the story with the music business. And then after that, I went back to Supermart or Kmart, back to Kmart for a while. And I was working there for them. And then I realized that after all these things I learning at the time about racism, and working about understanding how to deal with these issues and how to get people motivated in the workforce, how to get them, to be able to serve customers better, etc., etc. And so we started to really get a fairly productive company going. The staff were unusually motivated because we discussed, we were very open about all these issues. And it was working so well that towards the end, we were just before the last white election, 1989. We were now talking to the staff about what is the future of South Africa. So we stopped training them about sales, products. We spoke politics. We had every week, Friday morning, we had a political discussion. 1 week, somebody would discuss the ANC Freedom Charter. The next one, they'd come with the PAC manifesto, and then a Zapo. And in the meantime, whilst all this was going on, the leader of the Zapo came to join our business. His name was Laibon Mabasa, and he was banned. He had been in prison for some time under the Terrorism Act. And he was banned. He wasn't allowed to attend public gatherings, but he was allowed to work. So he came to our friend, to a friend of his that also worked for us by the name of Satsin Lusada, who was part of the Black Consciousness movement. And he introduced me to Laibon. He said, listen, Laibon needs a job. We said, sure, bring him in. So he came to work for us for a while. And so with all these things going on, by the time that the ANC was unbanned and Nelson Mandela was released, we were completely involved and absorbed in what the future of South Africa was going to look like. And we discussed it regularly with our staff. What did they want? How did they? And it was working so well that I decided, you know what, I need to move on from this little company and start teaching big companies how to deal with race and racism in the workplace, especially now that we were going through the transition from apartheid to democracy. So I said, right, so I left my brother to
For the second time.
for the second time.
What did he think about you before you went?
I thought I was crazy. But he carried on. And he's older than me. He's like,
Oh.
11 years. Anyway, so I started a company, a consultancy called Labor Link. And that was a whole new ballgame. And the idea was to go into the big corporates and teach them how to deal with issues of racism. So at first they thought I was crazy. And in fact, everyone thought I was crazy. What did I know is this. white guy who didn't have an education, didn't have a degree, coming to want to teach public companies how to deal with issues of race. So they just, initially, they just often chased me away. So I thought, now I'm determined I must find a way to get into that market. So I came up with the idea of industrial theatre.
Mm-hmm.
So we created a play about racism in the workplace. And we've got professional scriptwriters and actors to act in this play. It was a 45-minute play. And I gave them all the things, everything I wanted in the play. Then they wrote it. And we got two really good actors. You might know the one actor, Marco.
Yes.
He was our first actor.
Are you kidding me, man?
He was our first actor. And the other one was a white guy by the name of John Mathan, who is a radio personality in Cape Town. 105.
Okay.
So, and
Wow.
the two of them were our actors in the beginning. And then that was a big hit. It was a massive hit. So we put on a conference, put on the play, and then the companies wanted this play. They wanted to show it to their staff.
What was the name of the play?
It was called What About the Unshared Values? People were, at the time, were talking a lot about shared values. We must be sharing everything. And I said, what about the unshared values? What about dealing with the problems that have caused us to be separate and to be polarized in the first place? And that was the nature of it. We ended up doing about 5 plays, all different. One of them was affirmative action, different stuff, also one gender play. And they were very successful. And as a result of that, I was able to go and start consulting in these companies.
Ian, what did you find?
Yeah, I found big racism in a lot of most companies. And there's a company called Marion Roberts,
I know them.
who employed me in one of their divisions, because it's a very big company. One of their divisions was called the engineering division. In that division, they had about 13 or 14 subsidiary companies. Doing different things, engineering. One of those companies was a company called Autocast, which is in Brits, as you probably know, very conservative. Yeah. So they told me, listen, we want you to go to Brits. I had been working on 1 or 2 other companies of theirs already. We want you to go to Brits, and we want you to see what you could do there. Steps of changing the culture there, because the racism was very bad. So this was the story that virtually changed my life.
What year is this? Around what time?
This is 1993. Wow, the year before the election.
Mm-hmm.
Just the year before the election. So he tells the MD of this company is a very conservative guy. He tells him, listen, this guy Fuhr is coming to work with you there. You need to just help him and support him with this project. This guy was not happy to see me. Until they made it very clear. He didn't want me there, didn't need me, they would do it fine. So I said, okay, well, anyway, let me look around the place and see what it looks like. I'm walking around, and then above the toilets it says, like a sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So the store had separate canteens in 1993. So I said, hey, work here. You need to take the signs down. You need to open up the toilets, open up the canteens. Otherwise, I can't work you. He said, well, I'm not going to do that. I said, why not? He said, no, because when I do that, the shit is going to hit the fan here in such a big way that you won't be able to deal with it, he said. He said, trust me, he said. So I said, okay, well, that's fine. Let me go back and tell your boss there at Marion Roberts' head office that you're not ready to move to South Africa. You're not going to stay at Alba. He said, no, he thought about this. No, you better not do that. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll take down the signs. Right? But when the trouble starts, and I promise you it will start, when the trouble starts, and you better come here and sort it out, because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. A bit nervous, but I said, okay. Literally 2 days later, I get the call. The guy is screaming and shouting. He said, "Listen, all the black stars are out in the street, toying and going crazy and saying, and I need to get there very quickly." But in my car, maybe I should take a bulletproof vest. But I was a bit nervous. Anyway, I drove down there as fast as I could, and I got out, and there were all the guys toying, and then they let me into the offices. There's this MD screaming and shouting at me and swearing. Everything. Apology, he said, "Look what you've done, look what you've done." So I said, okay, but I can see all the black staff outside of it. The other white supervisors. He says, "They've gone home to pee. They won't use the toilets. They go home if they need to pee or use the toilet." I said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious. I told you that this is a serious business." So I said, "No, man, you can't be serious." "No, and they won't eat here either. They eat at home now. They go home to eat at lunchtime. Each and one share the canteen with us. That's why they're toying outside. Because they would each share the split, the toilets and the canteen." So I said, all right. And I started to realize how serious this thing was. And he said, "Now, what are you going to do now, big mouth?" I said, "Well, the only thing I can think of is to get the shop stewards and the supervisors together in one room and let's talk this thing through." So he said, "Yeah." He says, "You're a brave oak. I don't know if you're brave or stupid. Anyway, I'm trying. I'm trying to get these guys in." And he did. And I waited for a couple of hours. Then he got them in there. There were about 5 or 6 in each group. The white supervisors, black shop steward. And they didn't know who I was, because he was the only person that knew me. The opposite completely. So he introduces me to them as the guy who started all the trouble. He explained to me, he said, "This is the guy." I looked around and I thought, someone's going to die yesterday. And it could be me. As I was shaking. Anyway, so he says, "Okay." He says to me, "Carry on." So I said, "Okay, I'll start with the white supervisor." So I said to them, and they won't speak to me in English there, unless we prefer. So I speak in English, they speak it. Fine. So I say to him, "What is the problem?" He says, "There's no problem." He's not talking. "What? No problem?" But what do you mean no problem? And you guys are going home to use the toilet. Do you tell me there's no problem? He says, "There's no problem." He says, "I'll tell you why there's no problem." He says, "This new South Africa that you actually are all talking about all the time, that's supposed to be now freedom of choice. Everyone must have freedom of choice." I said, "Yeah, that's right." He says, "Well, we choose to go home." So I said, "But it's not right." "Why? Why do you choose to go?" That's what I want. What is your reason? And then he went on a tirade of abuse that I'd never heard. He was talking about the black people like they weren't there first, talking in front of them, telling me how bad they are, how stupid they are, how dirty they are. They can't work, they can't eat with their can't stand it, but I wouldn't know that. And I'm looking at these guys listening to this. I think, this is getting really, it's getting bad. And it's, even I had to stop this guy, otherwise he would have gone on for another 5 minutes telling us how bad with black people. So I said to them, to the shop steward, "Okay, would you like to respond to this?" They're all sitting their head down. They don't want to not saying the word.